Hey guys, so it looks like we got another Breaker trailer, and this video gives us a little bit more insight into the different skills of the class and how it's going to play. So I wanted to go over those pieces with you guys and talk a little about one, the areas of the text that were translated, so kind of the facts, and then two, the areas of kind of like assumption or like, prediction, I guess, about the breaker skills. So let's hop into it. So first part, we're going to talk about kind of the facts, the areas that were translated and the areas that people looked at the text and gave it, it is black and white, it is what it is, right? So I'm going to pull up a screenshot that I took from Memorizer's stream last night. So thank you so much, Memorizer, for doing this. He went and looked at it and translated a bunch of the skills and put in what he said are kind of his facts, right? So on this sheet, you'll see a couple things that are crossed out, and that's because I'd say those are more assumptions, and also the one on the bottom is definitely not true because Phos came in on Saint Stream, which I'll show a little bit later, and clarified what exactly that does. But we'll start at the top. So obviously there's two forms, two engravings, two forms, one for each engraving. The identity itself, it says right there, and it looks like it enhances the breaker's skills for several seconds. I'm not entirely sure if that's the case. I don't think it was said anywhere in the stream in terms of like the actual text. I think that was an assumption made, so I'm going to cross that out because I actually don't think that's true. Now, the first engraving, Punch King form. This looks like the non-entropy version, and I agree. It increases the duration of the identity. So the identity skill, when you press Z, right, you go into transformation form, basically, essentially, and that duration is increased. And it enables a special skill in that form, which is the one where you charge up, jump in the air, and slam down, right? I'll show that in the video later. But the more you consume the green meter, the shock meter, right, the more damage you do, not in this form, but it's on the skill itself, the Z skill itself. I think there's a little bit of a mistranslation here from Memorizer. So the more shock meter you use in this form, the more that Z skill, that jump skill, that punch skill will do. So you're going to obviously want to cycle through all your shock skills in this form, whether that be the green skills or the blue skills. So the second form is going to be the Asura form, and this is the head attack style entropy form, as we think it is at least. We think that the Punch King one is the non-entropy one, and the red one, the Asura form, is the entropy one. And I agree with this assumption because this actually has to do with something that I missed in the trailer last time, which I'll pull up right now. So here is the entrance into the red form, right? So we're going to watch slowly in slow motion what happens. So let's put the playback speed at 0.25. You're going to see that he activates this form, right? And the animation of the monster actually changes. So before he activates it, the monster was going in for an attack, right? And then the moment he activates it, he reels back forward into a regular standstill animation like that. So that, to me, looks like a taunt, right? He goes back for an attack, and then he steps back forward, resetting his animation. That's something that pretty much all taunt skills do. It cancels the attack, and then they go back into a standstill form. So I think that when you head into the red animation, the red identity, it is actually a taunt. And because of that, I think that the red one is going to be the entropy style of engraving. I'm not sure if I exactly agree that this is the best, I guess, design, but it is what it is, right? Because it enhances the auto attack, right? When I said in the last video that the flurry of punches that happens is not an actual skill, it's probably the auto attack, it looks like it turned out to be correct. The red, kind of the flurry punch, is just holding down the auto attack. And the reason why I don't think this is the best design is if you think about gravity training, right? It is a front attack class, and making you now, granted that this is only over a 5-second duration as opposed to gravity training, which is a 20-second duration, but still, there's often times where the boss does not stand still for 5 seconds, right? So if you're forced to do a head attack and hold it down for the 5-second duration of the engraving of your identity skill, I feel like you could lose a lot of damage if the boss moves at all. So I really wish that and hope that this isn't the case where this is the entropy identity and it's the opposite. That way, if the boss moves, you can still hit the back and do full damage. But we'll have to see when it comes out, right? I'm just hoping that they learned from gravity training and made it so that that isn't the case where the boss even moves an inch, you just kind of lose out on your damage. But yeah, so in this form, there's a system that increases the damage of your skills, your auto attack, scaling with your crit rate. Now there's also they pop an X skill, which gives tenacity and shield. This other part was kind of like debunked by Phosphos, and I'll go over that in a little bit. Z is the identity, C, which is auto attack, it enhances it, and in the trailer, it kind of showed a skill rotation, right? So with that those are kind of the facts, and let's hop into the trailer itself. So this is one of the first areas that I wanted to show, and this was kind of a big area of contention. Now, some people think that this skill, the A skill that was popped, right, is a counter. Some people think it's not. I don't think it's a counter because, one, they use this skill in other places in the different trailers, and it's not a counter skill in those situations. But two, here's why exactly I don't think it's a counter. So of course he pops a skill, he gets kind of this like defense buff, and then like this like skill, this other buff, right? Those are kind of like, to me, not very relevant to the fact that it's a counter skill or not. I think the proof is right here. So you can see the scrapper is in the middle of the screen, right here. As I pan forward in the animation, you will see that the scrapper starts cocking back for an attack before the enemy actually lets out their skill. So because of that, I don't think it's actually a counter or a parry. Like, if it was a counter, right, the moment that he starts cocking back an attack would be when the attack lands. But clearly, the attack comes out now, and he's already fully cocked back his animation. So, because of that, I don't think it's a counter. He clearly starts the attack itself way before the enemy's attacks hit. So that's why it is just a regular attack skill. And of course, like I said, in the other locations in the trailer, right, it doesn't use it as a counter. Of course, you could say, like, it might be a tripod, but in the history of counters in Lost Ark, it's usually the skill itself that is the counter, and a tripod that makes it so that the counter skill is no longer a counter. If you think about Gunlancer, counter Gunlance, that is a skill that is base counter. Glaive counter, it's a skill that is a base counter. There's no tripod that makes it a counter. Arrowmancer counter, it is a base skill counter and not a tripod counter. So because of that, I don't think that this is a counter. All those reasons kind of combined make me believe that this is not a counter. Now, this is the next thing, and this is pretty cool. So when the Breaker activates his identity skill, we can see, hold up, we'll go back just a little bit. The Breaker does a dodge right here, right? So he uses up his spacebar, and then he procs his identity skill, which is, of course, a level 3 super armor with most identity skills in this game when you press it. But what's interesting is that, as you can see, the cooldown for his dodge is actually gone. So when you go into your identity, it actually resets the cooldown of your dodge, which is really awesome. It helps you with mobility, helps you with dodging things, helps you, a ton. Gives you your level 3 super armor back, right? Now, as you can see here, he's spending all of his identity, or not, his shock, so that when he charges up his identity skill right here, his Z, it does as much damage as it can. Now, something else to note, actually, that I didn't mention, is that he does kind of like his dodge sway move, right? He dodges back right there. The interesting thing to note is that this looks like a combo skill, right? You see that little arrow right there? That indicates it's a combo skill. So the little dodge sway thing is not an actual, it's not the spacebar, it's just an actual skill. But he presses it, and it goes on cooldown immediately. For the most part, I mean, maybe he just didn't press it quickly enough, which is probably the case. But it looks like you can probably use that sway skill more than one time. He only uses it once in this instance, and also the rest of this video, he only uses it once. But it looks like this is going to be a multi-level dodge move. You can press it multiple times and probably dodge in different directions. I'd assume you can use it twice, but I don't know for sure. All right, so this is the red form. As you can see, he dodges again and does his sway again, but immediately goes on cooldown again. I just don't know. So I'm not entirely sure why it has that combo piece to it. As you see right here, he presses it, right? And it immediately goes on cooldown. There was no chance for him to press it again. So it's a little bit weird. I don't know. We'll have to see when the class actually comes out. But one thing to note is that he has these blue skills enhanced, right? And which is why, again, earlier, when Memo says it looks like the identity enhances the breaker skills for several seconds, I don't know if that's true. Because he's not in identity right now, and clearly his blue skills are enhanced. So I still don't know what exactly enhances the skills, but something enhances them, and we'll just have to see when the class comes out. And something interesting also to note is that these blue skills look like they consume the most meter out of all your skills. Some of them seem to be like Death Rattle for Female Scrapper, where it consumes the whole bar, but some of them don't consume the whole bar, but do still consume just like a significant portion of your shock meter. Now, this is what I wanted to highlight. The description itself says that when you press X, right, it becomes kind of like this parry type of skill. It gives you super armor, so I think level 2 is my assumption, and then it allows you to soak hits, right? It gives you a shield. So in Memorizer's note, he said that after the X ends, you get a debuff, which goes into kind of like a Predator kind of exhaust mode, right? I don't think this is true, and I'll show that in just a bit. And when you get during Hex, that duration, the duration of this debuff increases. And that is definitely not what the skill does. I'll show you what Foss says, and I did like a quick Google Translate or Papago Translate on this, and it shows that that is not the case either. So right here, he puts up his parry, right? His counter. And he's going to get hit. He gets hit. And I think what Memorizer thinks is like the exhaust of this little debuff thing right here on the bottom right, the little blue debuff. But later, I watched Saint's Saint's video, and he showed like, oh, that's just a debuff from the boss. So there is no debuff. There's nothing that suggests that once you get hit with it, it goes into exhaust. So to be honest, I don't really know like if there's a cooldown for it, or like does it use any resources. Like, what is the, I guess, limitations of this? Like, what makes it so I can't just spam this parry? So we'll have to see when the class actually comes out and see what happens. But I'm going to go to Foss's explanation, right, of this skill. So we'll watch it together.
And then it's not a one-time parry.
So when he says one-time parry, that means that it's not like a counter gun lance or like a glaive parry where you get hit and then it's off, right? It's that it lasts longer, so you could parry multiple attacks.
It's not a one-time parry. It's a
Oh.
parry have a duration, and if you get hit by it apply only once. This function apply only once, but if you get hit by the attack while in parry, it increases your parry duration.
Yeah. So when you pop the skill, right,
Okay,
you get a little bit of a buff. And during that buff window, that is your parry duration. So when you get hit during that window, when you're parrying, it'll increase the duration of that parry, window, that parry buff. So yeah, that is that. And that's why I don't think that this part that Memorizer wrote out is true. But for now, we'll just watch the rest of the video together. So as you see right there, right, he used it as, that skill was the same skill as the blue skill earlier that we thought could be potentially a counter. and it wasn't used as a counter there either, right? Another reason why I don't think that skill's a counter. So here is kind of the auto attack thing that I was talking about in our last video and earlier in the video. So when you go into your identity, you get kind of like a, you know, a enhanced auto attack in many ways, and you hold it down, and then when it ends, it kind of ends in like an uppercut. So here he uses an identity skill. An interesting thing about this identity skill is that it fills up your meter at the end. So this is going to be the identity skill that you're likely going to be using for both forms, to be honest. Unless there's one side, like unless the yellow one has like a cooldown for your form, which very may well be the case, because it looked like when you finished your attack, you had a 40-second cooldown on your skill, and it might not reset. So if that's the case, then probably this is the identity that you use for the red formation, the red stance, and then the other awakening that we saw in the previous trailer is the one that you'll use for the yellow stance. So yeah, that is my analysis. Again, thank you to Memorizer for putting together the this translation. Thank you for Saint and Phosphos for kind of clarifying some areas that this might have been a little bit incorrect or misinterpreted. And I'll link to their kind of YouTubes down below and their streams, so you guys can go check them out and say thank you to them for doing all this. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully you guys are as excited for Breaker as I am. And I can't wait to see what happens when this class comes out in Korea and look at its skills, look at how it works and everything. Because this is definitely super up my alley for classes. And hopefully that is the case for a lot of you guys as well. As always, if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, hit the sub button, ring the bell for notifications, and leave the comment down below if you're interested in playing this class. But as always, I also stream on Twitch and multi-stream on YouTube now every night starting at 10 p.m. PST. Twitch.tv/misosoup. Come join me there, and I hope to see you there. But if you're not going to be there, and I'm not going to see you there, I hope that I'll see you all on the next video. All right, guys. Peace out.